Hello. Let's deal with this particular question called Cuthbert. Right. So, what are we actually trying to solve in this question is BPR, business process reengineering. Business process reengineering. How is it different than normal changes, right? Normal process redesign. Why? How is it different? It's a radical new way, right? Which will enhance efficiency. Okay. So advise how the purposed use of BPR would influence the operational performance. So it's 14 marks. All right. 14 marks. How the proposed use of BPR could influence the operational performance. That's what we need to advise. Next is we need to evaluate the effectiveness of the current reward system. Right, that is one. Second is we need to recommend and justify how the system would need to change if BPR projects were to go ahead. Right, so we need to evaluate the effectiveness of the current reward system as well. Evaluate. Right. So evaluate the effectiveness of the current reward system and recommend how the system would need to change if the BPR project would go ahead. So we might have to change the measures associated with it or something like that. Let's see. We will know about that after reading the scenario. Right, Cuthbert is based in where? It's based in Sealand. Okay, seems like a favorite place of all the mark of the examination team, right? So what does it do? It manufactures jackets for very cold climates or cold environments, such as for mountaineers and skiers. It also supplies armed forces in several countries. Okay, so mountaineering and skiers, so it could be seasonal. Okay, just by looking at that I'm just thinking it could be seasonal. Okay, so some peaks are really it could be seasonal. Okay, sometimes the mountaineering season could be not at the winter season, or sometimes it just depends. Okay, it just depends on different places. And then it also supplies armed forces as well, right? So with different variants of existing product customized by the use of different colored fabrics, labels and special fastening for carrying equipments. So it incurs high cost on design and then on advertising. Okay, one is that, two is advertising. Okay, that's where it incurs high cost to maintain its reputation of the brand. Okay, so they might be doing some design improvement or whatever it is that could be done to try and minimize those costs. So the production process, what happens? So the jackets is made up of different shaped pieces, which is known as components. Right, these components are purchased by Cuthbert from an external supplier. The external supplier is responsible for ensuring the quality of the components, and the number of purchased components found to be defective is negligible. Right, cost of the components forms 80% of the direct cost. 80%, so it's significant, right? And the prices charged by Cuthbert supplier for the components are the lowest in the industry. So it's already lowest, so there is a possibility of what, getting low cost components. So in order to keep their profitability, the supplier itself, they might start degrading the quality, right? So they might have to compromise on quality. So quality issues could be there in future. Okay, just thinking about the implications. So there are three different stages for the production process, right? So first process is stage one is sieving, right? Then it's assembly, then it's finishing, right? So whenever you're sieving, so fabric components are sewn together by a machinist, Any manufacturing defects occurring after sewing has begun cannot be rectified, and finished garments found to be defective are heavily discounted. So anything that is when there is an error, it cannot be rectified, okay, currently, then it will be heavily discounted, or there is only two things, right? So it could either be discounted or it could be destroyed. In assembly, garments are filled with insulating material and sewn together for the final time. Okay, insulating materials is put inside it and then it's sewn, right? Finishing. So stage 3 is finishing. So that is basically labels, fastening, zips are shown to the finished garments. So through the process for labels, finishing and zips, they are shown to the final garments, right? So through the process of attaching, each of this is similar. Machinists prefer to work only on labels, fastening and zips to maximize the quantity they can sew each hour, right? So they prefer to work only on labels, comma fastening or zips. So they want to do it separately, okay? And jackets are produced in batches in a particular style in a range of sizes, right? Throughout the particular sizes in range of sizes. Throughout the production, the components required for each batch of the jacket are accompanied by a paper batch card which records the production processes which each batch has undergone. Okay, so there is a manual system, right? Paper batch card, and it has a record within it. So the batch cards are input into production spreadsheet. So it's not automatic, right? So manual input is there. So at the stage of the completion of each batch can be monitored and position of each batch is recorded. So it's monitored and positioned, right? So there are 60 machinists working in sewing department, 40 in assembly and finishing department in each of finishing. Okay, so 40, right? 140. All the machinists are managed by 10 supervisors whose duties include updating the batch card for work done, inputting this into spreadsheet, as well as checking the quality. So basically it's not the job of the machinist to check for quality, okay? So supervisors report to the factory managers who has overall responsibility for the production process. So machinists are paid on hourly wage. So they have a hourly wage, and they also have a bonus according to how many items they sew every week, which usually comprises 60% of the total wages. So it's very significant, right? Bonus. So 40% plus 60% of their total wages is from bonus. And what are they being bonus? Like they don't want to change, or they want to work on only one thing because it makes them very fast, and basically they want to hit their reward goal, right? And for supervisors, they receive an hourly wage and bonus according to how many items their teams saw each week. Even they are basically being rewarded not on quality but on quantity. Right? So the factory managers receives the same monthly salary regardless of production output. So what happens? So the factory manager receives the same monthly salary, okay? Quantity, right? So even they are encouraging them to just be quick, right? so it's more about how much they can provide as an output without measuring their quality. And factory managers receive same monthly salary regardless of production output. So factory manager is being rewarded just as it is, right? Just the monthly salary only. All employees are awarded 5% annual bonus if Cuthbert achieves its budgeted net profit. Okay, so there is some annual bonus as well. Right, but the individual target is not really about the overall target, right? So it's individual target is mostly about quantity, right? It's just the churn rate only, not about providing quality. So that is where like the personal goal takes over the organizational goal, right? So there is goal incongruence, let's just say that. The production process issues, there is some production process issues, right? Recently, what has happened? Recently, there is some production issues, right? So there is a large emergency order of jackets, and these large emergency order of jackets was for Sealand Army, right? It was cancelled by customer because it was not delivered on time. Not delivered on time. Okay, due to the following quality problems. Okay. So other issues in the production processes, and it's not only due to quality problem but also other issues. So supervisor had forgotten to input several batch cards, right? As a result, batches of fabric components were lost in the factory and replacement had to be purchased. So why did this happen? Forgotten to input several batch cards. That is basically forgotten to input several batch cards, right? So that is due to manual input. Right, and there were machinists available to sew buttons on the jackets, but there were only one machinist available who had been trained to sew zips, right? This caused for the delay. Only one machinist had the training to sew zips, right? So they did not have anyone who could sew the zips, right? This caused further delay to the production of the batch. When the quality of the jackets were checked prior to dispatch, many of them were found to be shown incorrectly because it's only one machinist, but only one had been trained to sew zips, right? So when they needed it, they just used whatever the other people were there, just for, like, let's say the label people were used for sewing the zips as well, right? So that did not result in good quality. So by the time this agreed delivery had already passed and it was too late to produce a replacement batch. Okay, now we need to do a business process re-engineering, right? Okay, so in the second requirement we can talk about reward system, right? So we can elaborate on that. And then for BPR we could just use all these things, the information provided over here, right? So there was this is the series of problems in the production at Cuthbert, and the directors have decided to use BPR, business process re-engineering, in order to radically change. Okay, so they have already defined BPR for us. Okay, we don't need to be defining BPR, right? So it's not a jargon anymore, right? So it's already been defined. So the proposal being considered as an application of BPR is the adoption of team working. Right, what are they planning to do? They are planning to implement team working. So 3 elements to it. Right, 3 elements to it. So the production line would reorganize into teams, right? So reorganize into teams. So what we can do is, let's say for every three elements, we can just say how each element would affect the operational performance. Okay, this would be a very logical idea, very so right now it looks like how you're going to answer, right, where you're going to start, but that could be a very good starting point. So production lines would reorganize into teams where all operations on a particular product type are performed in one place by a dedicated team of machinists. So where all operations, okay, not only a particular one but all, right? So where all operations would be done by a particular team in a production line, right? So what would happen? So that would mean that you're having multiple production lines, right? So multiple production lines, so there could be simultaneous work that could be happening, right? Simultaneous work could be happening, right? So it's not divided into different processes, but rather it's different. So there will be different production lines as well, based on different teams, and they will gain specialization based on what each team will be specialized in making a particular product, right? And each team of machinists would be responsible for quality. Haha, you see how that will also, you can write this particular point in your second number requirement right now as a planning tool. Okay, so because if they are being responsible for quality, how will they be measured, right? How will that impact our performance? How will it basically impact our control methods, right? So basically, how will the performance be reported, and how will it be measured, and how will it be managed by senior managers? Right. For the first time, machinists would be encouraged to bring about improvements in the production process. Okay, so bring about improvements in the production process. So it could be they are moving into, this is a bit of a concept from Kaizen costing, right, where there is continuous improvement and there is feedback from machinists themselves, right? So this is very good on the morale as well, right? So this could, of course, there will be cost savings, but there will be other intangible benefits as well, right? Such as employee morale, right? And then the quality will be improved, right? So they would no longer need to employ supervisors, and existing supervisors would join the team of machinists. Don't know how they would want to react to this demotion, because people don't take such things favorably, right? Of course you want as well if you are being demoted. So number of batches in the production would be automatically tracked. So this would basically, what it would do, it would basically eradicate the current problem that we are having, which is basically the supervisor had forgotten to input several batch, right? So this would eliminate the need for paper batch card, so which is currently being done manually, right? So what happens? That gives the organization what it can be agile. That's the word. Okay, I would definitely throw in that word right over there, right? And send it to the markers, right? Why not? Why not, right? Agile. It would need the organization to be more agile. It would give them scalability, right? The organization will be more scalable because you don't have to waste your time or your activity, which is non-value adding activity, right? Supervision cost is non-value adding, right? Inputting this thing is non-value adding, right? So inputting all this paper batch card is non-value adding. So you're just basically what you're doing, you're actually removing those activities so that your organization is more effective, right? So that's one thing. And then okay, that's pretty much for number A, right? So since we've done a little bit of discussion, let's just look at the model answers as well. Why not, right? Let's see what kind of answers that the markers have written. So this is a fantastic question for ensuring that you have the depth of knowledge that is required on BPR. So in part A, be sure to discuss the influences on operational performance rather than performance in general. not only performance in general, but operational performance. Alright, so part B demonstrate how examiners view APM as an entire subject rather than an individual topic. In this case, a link between BPR and changes to the reward system. Right? How, as I have mentioned as well, how this BPR changes would tie up with our reward system in the organization. You see, it's not only one thing in a silo. Okay, it's not one thing in a silo. It's how these two things affect each other. It's about how models affect an organizational performance. Okay, how models, adopting a model could improve organizational performance, how models can be used as a way of generating metrics, right? So all these things are tested in APM, right? So that's how they have done it in this scenario, where they are telling us how, when we are implementing such changes, what should happen to the existing reward system in the organization. All right. So BPR, right? BPR involves business process reengineering. It's not an incremental reengineering or incremental changes. It's a fundamental shift and radical change. Okay, it's a fundamental change and radical changes in the way process in our organizations are designed. In the way processes are designed, right? The focus on the needs of consumer and customer satisfaction are key to BPR. Why are we doing that? Is basically our focus is on the organization, on the customer and customer satisfaction. What does BPR aims to do? BPR aims to improve key performance measures such as reducing costs, improving quality, service delivery, customer satisfaction. Service delivery is delivery time or lead time. Let's just say that we had missed for this army order, right? So you see. So the proposal is to move away from existing functional structure, right? Because right now it's divided based on functional structure. You see, the important thing that they have identified, what is the current process, it's what functional. Why is it functional? Because it's divided. The structure right now is based on functions. Okay, so what kind of functions were there? There were someone basically putting up the labels in the clothes, right? Someone was putting the component inside the fabric, right? So those were different functions, right? So based on that, they had built up this 3 different structures, right? So we were trying to, so every staff were basically attached to only one stage of production process, or even to one type of machine within each function, right? Within each type of function. So there is a radical change at Cuthbert, right? Team working is a radical change in such situation. So not only as a single person at a single machine, but working as a team as a whole, right? So reorganizing into teams, right? So I'm already thinking about my reward structure already. So I'm already thinking like the whole team should be rewarded. There should be some kind of incentives like that. Okay, I'm already thinking about that. But right now, let's just tackle that. If that were thought were to come, I would definitely jump into a requirement B, put up that single word right over there, come back to this question back again. Okay, so it does not always, your thinking does not have to be always linear. Okay, it does not work, right? We are humans. Fine, that's fine. So reorganizing into teams, right? So reorganizing into teams. So it's the first BPR changes that we are making, and how will that influence operational performance, right? How will that change operational performance? Right. So we are running production side by side, right? So currently there is very little multitasking of production staff at Cuthbert, right? This was seen that there were insufficient trained JIP machinists available for the emergency order, even though there were enough machinists to sew buttons. Right? Even though there were many people who could sew buttons, but they could not sew what JIPs. Right? So they lacked multi-skill. Right? So they were not. Their skills were not easily transferable. Let's just say that. Right? So this led to emergency order failing to meet the customer requirements, and hence the company was not able to deliver the product on time. Furthermore, it seems that the machinists prefer to work only on one type of machine. This is probably because they are currently rewarded according to the speed rather than quality of production, right? And can work faster when using just one machine, right? So right now you're being rewarded based on speed. So obviously you would want to work on speed, right? On speed rather than anything else, because you're being rewarded for that, obviously, right? So the change in team working would imply that the job enlargement for machinists who would have to be trained in multi-skilled, or they will be multi-skilled in different parts of the production process, right? So they could perform the roles of other members of the team to ensure that there are no bottlenecks in the production. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the cost of reorganization, right? So the cost of reorganization and the costs of training, right? Cost of reorganization, along with there will be two costs, cost of training and cost of reorganization, should be outweighed by the results, which is improved efficiency and flexibility of production. In this way, there is more focus on efficiency, or let's just say outcome, which is correct quality produced on time, and less focus on individual task within the process, which is a key principle of BPR, right? Which is a key principle of BPR. So it's about more focus on outcome and less on individual task. Another thing is, what was the second thing? Was responsibility, right? So production team is responsible for quality, right? So Cuthbert brand is currently very strong, right? It's very strong, and its use of product for protection in harsh environment and by armed forces mean that quality is a key element of customer satisfaction. Just imagine you go to a very cold place, you've been given this a very I don't know what do you call it, like very low quality kind of jackets, and you feel cold, right? So that's just going to cause very much dissatisfaction among the consumers, right? So quality is a key element in this thing, right? So quality of that jacket is very important for customer satisfaction, right? So Cuthbert must be able to manufacture goods which are free from defects, including when there is an emergency order, right? So reorganizing the production teams of machinists, sometimes known as production cells, right? So would make machinist responsible for decisions about quality, right? So they would be more they will be assigned more responsibility, right? So that will in turn make them more accountable, right? So whenever we are reorganizing them into production cells, they will be required to deliver on quality, So if they could deliver on quality, customer needs will be met, right? So reducing the number of processes for checking all this re-engineered checking is a type of re-engineered processes. And the quality checking correctly performed by supervisors are not necessary, or you could say it's not value adding, right? The production teams will be managing themselves in this respect, and the distinction between supervisors and machinists will be removed, which is again a typical of organizations which have undergone BPR, right? So the production teams will be managing themselves. So these are a feature of BPR, right? Where there is a proper distinction, where there was earlier in the old system, there was distinction between supervisor and machinist, which won't happen. Alright, sorry. Encouraging machinists in each team to suggest improvements in production processes should bring about improvement in quality and efficiency, and hence reduction in costs, right? So it's the machinists who are closest to the production process and may be able to see how it can be improved, right? So Cuthbert could also consider a formal system of incremental continuous improvement, such as Kaizen costing, right? Remember I talked about Kaizen costing earlier. I had just mentioned, and they have just talked about it. So we did good in this regard, right? I just did not talk about customer satisfaction much, which I should have, right? I should have gone into a bit of detail inside it. And next thing is tracking with RFID, right? So typically organizations with re-engineered processes. So if RFID, I just wanted to see how big of a company they are, right? Manufacturer's highest cost is design and advertising in several countries. So of course they have a volume. Okay, they have a volume. So the organizations will be flatter, right? Because one level of hierarchy is being removed currently, right? And it seems that the current roles will no longer be required if the proposal is adopted, right? If the proposal is adopted, the current role is not required for supervisors, right? For quality checks, it will be no longer required, right? For quality checks, what happens? It will no longer be required. And nor will the recording of different batches, which will be automatically done by a RFID tag. So this should not only improve the accuracy or integrity of the data, it should also improve the salary costs and improved lines of communication, okay, in the business. How does it improve the lines of communication? The data is more believable, or in big data terms you could say veracity, right? Or you could say integrity of the data is higher, right? The use of RFID tags would capture the information required to manage the production process at source, and there would be no distinction between gathering of data and processing it, right? So there would be no distinction between that, right? So in contrast to the current system of inputting batch into spreadsheet, it is a feature in organization which have undergone BPR, right? So it's a whole new process enhancement, okay? So there is no another one more step in the process has been reduced. All right, so basically there is a data and then there is someone who needs to process it, right? So the processing does not need to happen, it will be simultaneous. And we could also talk about practical and cultural aspects of the proposal, right? So the new process is related to quality rather than quantity, right? So which will mean that processes and systems developed in order to record and report this. So new performance measures have to be developed, new reward system will need to be developed, right? The proposal by definition reports a significant cultural change which may be resisted by staff, right? So there will be resistance which as they perceive it as a threat and one of cost cutting measure rather than a fundamental long term change, right? So therefore stakeholder relationship between employees or stakeholder relationship, that is employees and with its internal staff, right, with its management level will need to be worked upon, right? So there will be significant cost associated with training, right, and disruption of the transition, right? That will need to be taken into account, right? And if the benefits outweigh the cost, the company should go ahead, right? So right now it's therefore, right, therefore the benefits associated with BPR is significantly higher compared to the current system. It would be recommended to in this it would be wise to implement the process as it would bring about the aforementioned changes within this organization or within Cuthbert, let's just say that. Number B, right, current reward system, one heading, right? Second is how do you justify this systems would need to change under new proposal, right? New systems, you could just say that under if the process goes ahead, right? Right now the effectiveness of current reward system, the machinist, they are paid basic hour wages plus an amount on how many items they can sew, right? So this will encourage them to work quickly, which will reduce product cost, right? However, as they are not directly rewarded for quality that they produce, they will not be motivated to produce high quality work. Furthermore, in order to work quickly, machinists prefer to work only on one type of machine, which reduces Cuthbert's overall flexibility to address the needs of customer. Okay, so since they are only working on one particular machine or one particular item, right? One particular, what are they doing? They are just sewing like labeling or fastenings or zips, right? Those are the only three things they are doing. So it would basically be less, they are less flexible, right? They are less flexible. So the production supervisors are also receiving bonus on how many items each of the machinists in the team are able to sew, right? So they are not rewarded on the quality of work, and they may also neglect the quality in order to increase their speed of production. The machinist in the team could also see it as unfair that the supervisors obtain a bonus based on what they see as their effort, right? You see, that's a very good analysis point right there, right? It's talking about organizational politics right there, right? So the production manager does not receive any production bonus for production or quality. It seems even he has currently no direct motivation to improve upon. Right? Even though you're just earning a daily salary, so that means there is no incentive to work on the quality. Right? So why would you push yourself further? Right? So that's the whole definition of a reward system, that it should be achievable but not easily achievable. Right? It should be optimal performance. Right? It should demand optimal performance. So that should be the case. So at 5% of salary, right? You see, even in this thing, they are following a pattern right there. Okay, right there. They talk about machinist, they talk about supervisors, right? They talk about supervisors, they talk about factory manager, and they talk about this thing as well. So the overall scheme as well, they talk about that as well. You see how they have just used a sentence as a marker, as a reference to create this 4 different paragraphs. 4 sentences has a 4 different paragraphs. Right. So at 5% of the salary, the bonus related to Cuthbert's overall profit is relatively small. So at 5% salary, it is relatively small, and it's unclear whether it's a significant motivator to any of the employees. Furthermore, if the machinists in particular perceive their own effort as too remote from the company's overall profit for them to bother to achieve it, right? So even if they were to be motivated by this, it is unclear what proportion of the total cost are related to direct labor, such as Cuthbert incurs many other costs such as advertising to maintain the brand, right? So even if they were motivated, right, it should be big enough to be motivated, because 5% of annual bonus, you are dividing it into all employees, right? That could be very mere sum, right? Very mere sum. So it's not significant, it's not very significant as their total wage, so it's not that big of a motivator, right? And then even if they are motivated, the question says it incurs a high advertising cost. So what's the cost, advertising cost, because that is in turn influencing the profit, right? That's a very good analysis point right there, and that will earn us the analysis marks, professional marks, right? And that's it. And then other costs such as advertising is mentioned. And if the cost of direct labors were relatively low, even a large improvement in the product efficiency by the machinist may have little effect. So if the cost of direct labor were very small, right? So even if they need very large production efficiency or large improvement in efficiency, the overall effect on profit would be very small. Hence, their bonus will be will not improve as much as per their effort. Okay, it's not very correlated. So under the new proposal, what's going to happen, right? So the existing reward system will need to change to move to a team-based production, right? So it may be still appropriate to reward machinists with volume-related bonus, but as they work in teams, team-based performance bonus would be more appropriate. So in that way, the team would ensure that any underperforming machinist would improve their performance, right? So the whole team should be rewarded. The volume-based related bonus should be continued to some aspect, okay? And reward based on other factors such as quality, innovation, on-time delivery, ability to work as a part of a team should be considered when setting the reward system, right? And this would be a significant change for Cuthbert, where the machinists are being encouraged for the first time to bring about improvement in production process. So we are receiving inputs from them as well, right, for changing the production process. So rewards based on direct cost of production, or for number of new suggestions made by each machinist may be appropriate here. Or it could be not only number of new suggestions, because you can come up with any kind of suggestions, right, which could not be feasible. So we could say like number of new new suggestions implemented, right, that could be a basis of reward. New performance measures would need to be developed against which to align rewards to ensure employees work toward the overall objective, right. There should be feedback information system, and they would need significant investment in IT systems, right. Similarly, commitment is very important from the high level, and this process itself requires a lot of additional costs and divert management's time, right. So that's pretty much it for this question. I hope I did make few things clear. That's it for this video. Take care. Bye bye.